social conditions. So I think that he pointed out, how do we deal with the Philippinization of language? And I think that's very important. We do have to create a new language. In our struggle, we have to come up, they co-opted all the terms from the 60s. You notice that? All the terms that came out of the peace movement, all the we shall overcome, they done flipped that. You understand? And I mean, you have Trump up there talking about Americans we don't get beat, we overcome. I mean, so he's absolutely right. But I think the important thing, and I'm done, is we have to use a different terminology to define our struggle. We have to define the parameters of the debate in a new language, in new terms. That was the essence of Black Power. When we said Black Power, power to the people was a slogan that applied to all people. It was a simple slogan, and everybody picked it up. Now the police are talking about blue power.
The Philistines of language.
Reference to capitalism, and also I think it can be directly connected. This is what I like more common to the notion of myth, because there's a bigger damn myth than the most human way of interacting economically is capitalism. But I think it's also another interesting question I'd like to comment on, that it's also maybe even more than anything a psychological barrier, because we can demonstrate historically what capitalism does to all kinds of people, but getting people over the myth, the psychological barrier that there are other ways of thinking is really, really a challenge to the whole alternative movement. I've been struggling with it for decades. I'm an old man, I'll be dead soon. I want to see at least something.
Okay. Oh, no! You're not dying.
But the Wall Street movement, was the first mass movement that spread globally that attacked the 10% or 1% ownership class. And what happened to that? You're absolutely right. Capitalism is a construct. The reason, and it will collapse, because what do we use when we use it? What's the dollar represent? It represents debt. But we think it represents wealth. It's absolutely a worthless piece of paper. Now, when people realize it was worthless, that's the end of capitalism.
So when you talk about all debts, public and private, right? And as we talk about indigenous land and liberation struggles, we're always talking on deficit. We're always talking about a deficit. What about our assets, right? What about our dividends that we're supposed to receive from all this work we did for this country, right? And forget about all this deficit talk. Start talking asset talk. Start talking what we got to bring to the table, right? Because we already brought a lot. We already brought a lot to the table. America has wrestled on the backs of a lot of people, but we haven't received our dividends. So.
And just the last thing, I mean, I think you're